So, good morning, everybody. Many of you will know Haishi. Very few of you will probably know me, although some of you may have seen me on calls in relatively recent history. I'm John Stenlake. I'm a solution director from the industry team for what we call the manufacturing and mobility industry, but really I'm focused on automotive within Microsoft. I'm based in the UK. My background is from the automotive industry. I started my career as an engine ECU programmer, and then went on through many roles at Ford Motor Company for 20 years, finishing up as their chief architect in Dearborn, Michigan. Then left there to join Microsoft, and with a few excursions in and out, I've sort of been somewhere around the Microsoft world ever since. Very happy to be here today talking to you. If we could go to the next slide, I'm going to kick off with talking a little bit about talk a little bit about Microsoft's participation in Eclipse SDV, and then I'm going to hand over to Haishi, who's going to give you an update on Symphony. So this presentation will cover both aspects. So the first thing to say is we're still here. I think there were some rumors that maybe Microsoft was disengaging from Eclipse SDV, and even rumors that we were disengaging from the automotive industry. And these seem to happen from time to time, every time we sort of reorganize ourselves. And I think that tells you something about how we manage some of these reorganizations and the communications associated with it. So I think there are some things we could learn to do better in that regard. But anyway, no, we are still very much committed to Eclipse SDV. We're continuing to be a strategic member. And yes, we have had a few reorganizations, and there's still some reorganizations going through the system. So names in the frame will change, but we are still here. And in terms of the names of the frame, what I wanted to do here is just sort of emphasize some of the folks that you will see around, just so that we could give you some clarity around continuity of who is here and who isn't. And in that regard, I really want to sort of highlight some key contributions that sort of members of our organization have made. One being Stephen Wally, and I don't know that the community days has a lot of interaction with the steering committee, but Stephen has served as the steering committee chair since the inception of Eclipse SDV and has done a fantastic job. And I don't think he tended to come to these meetings, and he certainly isn't here today. And it's my great pleasure to take over from him. I cannot emphasize, I think, the contribution that he's made, but we're also very happy that Bjorn from ETAS has taken over as the steering committee chair, and it's great to have him with us today. So that's Stephen. And Stephen, in our case, will continue as our Eclipse Foundation board member, so he's still involved, and he's still providing coaching and help to this group and to Bjorn and myself in particular. I'm now the new steering committee member, but I'm also essentially taking over from Philippe as the representative in many of the projects and working groups. And so from that regard, I also want to acknowledge the terrific contributions of Philippe Rosado, who is here today. Many of you know Philippe. And without putting myself in a difficult position, I will just say that if it was left to me, Philippe would still be part of our organization and would still be here. And I'm very pleased to say that not only are we still here, but so is he. And so in his sort of new role as an individual contributor, it's great to see Philippe here. And I couldn't be happier that he's still part of this community and still able to contribute. And we look forward to continuing to work with him and obviously many others. Haishi, I think you know, and he'll be following on from me to talk about Symphony and give you that update. And you probably won't know the next three people on the list. They're people from a little bit more sort of technical roles who we've drafted in to participate in some of the projects, and you'll see them starting to participate in some of the calls and the project over the coming weeks. I wanted to emphasize the areas of interest for Microsoft because obviously we're less involved in some of the really interesting things that are going on around the sort of in-vehicle stack because we don't have that much of a role in terms of software within the vehicle, and I wish we did. But obviously we are very interested in everything that's going all around the sort of evolution towards distributable code and driving the adoption of Eclipse SDV, which I suppose in many respects is my shorthand way of saying SCORE. So anything we can do to support projects like ESCOR that advance, moving Eclipse forward into the industry, we're very happy to support. Obviously, toolchains is an area of focus for us. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We're also interested in anything to do with the sort of broader connectivity of the vehicle and specifically AI. And I'll be showing a very short video in a couple of minutes, which highlights some of the work that we've done with partners to actually show how AI can be used to accelerate an SDV toolchain. And just to say, whether you've worked with us in the past or not as a customer or partner, very happy to make your acquaintance, very happy to discuss how we can collaborate. Oh yeah, I just pressed the blipper, jolly good. I think many of you are aware we've had our own toolchain project, and Philippe has presented it to this forum on prior occasions, I believe, and some of you may have seen that. And we still continue to work in this area, and the video I'm about to show will drive into that a little bit more on the AI side. We'd just like to sort of put the thought out there. I think there's an opportunity to generalize work around toolchains into a community model for a pluggable customer toolchain. And I mean a customer toolchain. So in a sort of, an OEM or a tier one end user of some of the good software that this community is creating. Really around the concept of having a common meta model for being able to describe essentially payloads, which would then be orchestrated, as part of the tool chain. So we wonder if that might be a potential project or see. I know there are other ideas around which are not mine to talk about, so I won't, around tool chains. So I sort of wonder if the time has come to consider, some work that's focused on this area. If there's interest, I'd love to know more. With that, I'll show our quick video here.
Today, Microsoft's generative AI is transforming and supporting partner innovation in digital engineering within automotive software development, testing, simulation, and deployment, accelerating innovation from end to end at scale via agents developed by our partners and powered by Microsoft Copilot. For example, let's say we have a new feature for the battery management system on a new EV that we'd like to make available. The process begins with gathering the requirements and analyzing whether or not they're feasible and meet functional safety standards. A PTC agent helps analyze the extensive documentation, existing software packages, standards, and regulations, then presents concise insights and recommendations. This improves quality and saves time. Building a prototype and performing simulation testing helps engineers understand if the functional requirements can be met. But choosing the right configuration for the test purpose is the core challenge. An AVL agent helps engineers leverage virtual simulations, using years of extensive and fundamental engineering best practices, process know-how, and expert knowledge of simulation tools, allowing even junior engineers to build optimized virtual prototypes that replace physical testing, boosting development speed and time to market, as well as time to productivity for fresh talents. As development engineers work to validate the concept, another agent first helps to automate the configuration of development and test environments using Azure services and industry standards. It then helps generate a validation test plan mapped to the overall system requirements. This includes automated test cases and configuration recommendations for software and hardware in the loop verification and validation. This helps engineers assess the plan's quality before testing starts in the virtual environments and dramatically reduces setup time. When development and testing are finished and positive test results received, the new feature is ready to be deployed in a fleet of test vehicles. An Excel 4 agent now assists the OTA manager in accelerating accurate deployment to the chosen test fleet. Copilot prompts the OTA manager to extract key information, walking through the steps of campaign generation, review, approval, deployment, and monitoring of OTA progress. And lastly, as engineers make sure the new software meets expectations and identify any possible side effects, a Copilot agent from AVL helps predict not only system health states and failure modes, but also risk levels and anomalies, and visualizes the data for easier understanding. This is just one area where Microsoft's generative AI, integrated with solutions from our partners, is transforming the automotive industry.
I cut the video off a little bit early because it is very marketing-y. It was built for CES, so you'll probably gather that not exactly built for this audience. I'm reusing the content, but I think it is I mean, there's real work that lies behind it. And that real work is working with PCC, with AVL, and with Excel to have them leverage the ability to build agents in Copilot Studio to be able to accelerate different parts of the tool chain. That's something we're very interested in, continuing to support. So with that, I think I mentioned the fact that a lot of our interest is around tool chains. That's essentially, if you think about that, what you just saw and pieces of that we were sort of lighting up and automating with the video. And I talked about the notion of a meta model. This is an example, doesn't show up very well on this screen, but of the sort of meta model that we're conceptualizing. Obviously, this is just the one that we built, and we'd be much more interested in seeing a community version of this one with contributions from many of you, not just our thinking. With that, I'm going to hand over to Haishi, and I'm aware that we're standing between you and the coffee break. So from that point of view, Haishi, please, you're on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, great. Is it on? Okay. Yeah, first of all, very glad to be here. I see some familiar faces and new faces. Really glad to be here. And kudos to Kai. That was a fantastic symphony introduction and demo. I couldn't have done it better. It's a great. You're free to steal it. I will, if you don't mind. And your protocol, I'm wearing the shirt. And before I start, this video will be available to the public, right? Yeah, I need to explain to my wife, yes, I'm on a real business trip. And the company is called Lunatech. It's not lunatic. Although you said it's a perfect company for me to work for, but it's a different company. Okay, so Eclipse Symphony, because Kai did such a great introduction, I don't think I need to repeat there. But basically, the problem we are trying to solve is that when we talk to different customers, they always have the challenge of managing distributed infrastructure using different tool chains. Then the idea is to give them a consistent management experience. So for instance, if you deploy a Helm chart, or you deploy a Windows application, or if you deploy an Android application, if you do an ECU update, it's the same workflow, right? You define a solution, you create an instance to deploy it. Then on top of that abstraction, we can provide additional values. For instance, you can do the gated deployment, like you can do approvals, you can do canary deployments, maintenance window, all the good things, right? So this project actually started a few years ago, and now we have a distributed team at Microsoft. We have team members in US, in India, and in China. And it's under active development. In the last year, we merged over 300 pull requests. So these are like almost every day. We didn't focus on building out new features. We mostly focused on like a real world readiness. We fixed a lot of security problems. We improved observability and scalability. And in a lot of cases, those developers just fixing bugs I created over the years. So I got a lot of complaints, but I think we're in a good position now. And we also have some key new features I want to highlight today. Essentially, we have the ARM Provider, Rust binding, and the Margo Compliance, which I will go into more details. But like John mentioned, right, our commitment hasn't changed. We keep committing Symphony as an open source project. Actually, it started from Microsoft, but we've donated to Eclipse Symphony for 2 years now, I think, or last year. Yeah. And it's under MIT license. Anybody can take it, make a commercial product. There's no hard feelings. And we maintain platform neutral and protocol neutral. And this is one of the reasons that we didn't make an ARM provider for a long while, because we don't want to seem to be attached to ARM. But as the project goes, we got increasing requests to say, now we have this hybrid application that spans cloud and edge. We do need a cloud provider. So we started with the ARM provider, which means you can essentially provision any Azure resources through this provider. And we enabled state seeking. In case you're not aware, right, ARM or CloudFormation from AWS, neither of them is a state seeking system. meaning if you have a template you deploy, then later on you destroy something, there's no restore, right? You have to build a custom solution to restore that. But with Symfony, we actually introduce the state seeking into those platforms. Let's say if you provision the virtual machine, then someone came in, delete the virtual machine, we'll bring the virtual machine back to you. And yeah, this enables us for interesting scenarios where you have both cloud component and edge component you want to manage as one solution. That's what we can manage. So currently we have this ARM provider is already merged into our main branch. The next thing we are looking at probably is a Terraform or OpenTofu, so that we can have a broad support for the cloud providers. And the more interesting thing is this Rust binding. In case you don't know, Symfony is written in Go because initially we focus a lot on hosting ourselves on Kubernetes. Although Symfony itself can be hosted outside of Kubernetes as well, but to be playing nice with the Kubernetes community, we chose Go language. But then we got a lot of feedbacks that people want to have a Rust-based provider. So now we have a Rust provider, we call it Rust binding, so that you can write your Symfony provider in Rust. And the difference is that because this library is dynamically loaded, it's not statically linked to our source code. This means you can contribute your provider without contributing the source code to the community. If you have binary, you just want to say, hey, load it, then we'll load it dynamically during the runtime. So before we load the library, we do a validation. Currently, we do a simple validation. Basically, we check a hash code so that we don't load the arbitrary code into the system. But in the future, we aim to support more sophisticated method like a digital signing, such kind of things. And well, yeah, it's actually it's a C library. We basically we're loading a C library. If you can.
Don't mean without any check. Then I can dynamically share library without updating the hash code all the time.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That is annoying. Yes. Yeah. And we do have the create publish it. Currently is 0.1.3. You can check it out. And currently the providers at work, the U protocol, you just saw the demo from Kai. And we actually have the Ankyos provider ready as well. So basically we can talk to the Ankyos system, then use Ankyos to deploy the payloads. Currently it's under a different branch because we are currently in the code freeze until end of March for our next release. But in April, we'll merge the Ankyos provider into our main branch, so you will be have access to that. Ankyos provider, just to give you more details. So what we envision is that Symfony is used as the cloud provider. This is similar to the Purple case where we have like a cloud-based fleet management. Then we talk to the Ankyos system on the car. Basically, the Ankyos system has a server and have multiple agents. Then our Symfony agent will be just deployed as a standard Ankyos payload. This gives us, I think, named pipeline access to the Ankyos system. Then you can start to use Symfony API to deploy your payload. And I think there was a question like, if I have my existing toolchain system, why do I want to use Symfony, right? I think the value of Symfony becomes more apparent if you have like a multiple toolchains working together. Let's say if you have some Ankyos system you want to deploy, and then you have a Helm chart somewhere, you have some ECUs somewhere else, and that's your whole application. What Symfony enables it to do is to define that as a solution. Then Symfony says, oh, this component goes to Ankyos, this go to ECU, this go to Windows, this go to Kubernetes. That's the value of Symfony, right? And that orchestration is done on the cloud. So tomorrow in the work through session, you will have like a detailed demo of this. And in the demo, actually, we use a simpler case. Essentially, we took out the cloud piece, we deployed entire Symfony answer Ankyos workload, then we can just use the local API to talk to Ankyos. Actually, this also demonstrates the flexibility of Symfony. Although we are kind of this big orchestrator, you can actually deploy everything in a single container or a single process, in this case, as the Ankyos workload. And the other project I want to mention, this is actually not in the SDV community, but more in the manufacturer community. This is another project we engage in, Microsoft engage in to establish interoperability standard for the manufacturers. And you can see an impressive list of founding members. And currently, we are actively working with the Margo community to become Margo compliant. I'm a technical group member on the spec, and Symphony is committed to be Margo compliant when this standard becomes available. Currently, it's still under the work. It's in a very early stage. I think probably we'll see some release. I don't know. I don't have the exact timeline, but maybe later this year or next year. And currently, we do have a preview branch on the Symphony repo. I think it's called Margo something, that you can actually experiment with the early spec of this Margo. You can actually take a Margo application and deploy it to your system using Symphony. And what's next? We'll do it for real. We are actually engaged with a lot of internal and external customers. We are trying to actually put them into the real environment for the battle test. I can't mention the names now, but that's what we are focusing next. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention a call out to all the contributors from inside and outside Microsoft. We have a lot of great contributions. Thank you all for all the committers. And one of the areas, of course, nowadays, everybody talks about AI. It's actually fascinating to see you can create like $1 billion business just by creating some prompts, right? But we are actually trying to put the AI into good use. And one particular use case is that we want to use AI to help developers to write providers, right? Like the Rust provider or Go provider. There's an interface, there's some boilerplate code you need to write. The idea is to take your description of your requirement and then we'll generate the provider code for you. Probably it wouldn't be like a fully functional code at the end, but it will have enough skeleton for you to do modifications and tweaks to connect to your system. For instance, if you have an open API spec, basically you can say, now I want a Symphony provider connect to this open API spec. We'll just generate the provider for you. So that's something we are actually working on. And also, when we enable this, one side effect almost, we can actually uplift a lot of legacy tool chains into this AI world, right? Let's say you have a legacy provider that has been there for decades and no one has touched it. And if you wrap that into the Symphony interface, then all of a sudden you have this like a co-pilot and AI generation capability so that you can actually generate artifacts for that tool chain as well. So that's what we are looking at next. And there's also other interesting notions that Symphony API is designed to be very, very low level. Actually, all our object models, if you look at it, a lot of them are just key value pairs. That's by intention. Basically, we want to make it machine friendly so that they can do like graph queries and do AI inferences on those object models. But it's kind of difficult to build a nice user experience on top of that object model. So one of the ideas that we will make UI generation. So basically, if you want the portal, you can just use AI to generate that portal that satisfy your specific experience expectations. And yeah, then we want more providers. The more providers, the better. And join us. We are trying to ramp up the community engagement. Of course, there's a lot of learning we need to do from here as well. So we created a Discord server. There's a Google group, and we host a monthly community meeting. I think that link is wrong, but we'll fix that once we have. You can look up the Discord server for the updated community meeting. So basically, we host this meeting every month. Then you're all welcome to join. And if you have like a project, a topic, or demo you want to bring to the community meeting, you're welcome to do so. And we also have a YouTube channel that has like an increasing number of YouTube clips on there. So I think that's all I have. I kind of moved quickly. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you very much.
Online as well, of course. There any questions from online?
We explained everything so well.
Sneak peek of tomorrow's hands-on session. So what are we gonna see tomorrow?
So tomorrow, basically, the slide, how do I go back? Okay, it doesn't matter. So basically, the Ankaios provider, you can see it in action, right? Basically, you will see this this setup working. We'll see how you can use Symfony to deploy Ankaios.
This is clearly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. So tomorrow we will see the Ankaios provider that was built by Haishi. Kai is also going to show up the code in more detail, right? And yeah, and service to sign up blueprint from Benedict.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, great.
Just quick question. Have you already merged the Ankaios provider to?
No, this is on a different brand.
Yeah.
We are currently in the code phrase. It will be merged in April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I would have loved to use it already instead of the script provider, but
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, I was gonna ask you. So yeah, but
he's too slow.
Yes.
okay.
Actually, on the provider, what we are also actually it's supported today, but we are trying to formalize is that we will provide provider isolations so that you can load your provider into a separate process. So in this case, you don't grant Symfony process access to your system. Essentially, Symfony, all it does is to send messages to the provider process. Then you can give a very fine granular access control to that process to access your system. Let's say if you want to manage many different systems and it have like a exclusive access rights, you can actually grant each system with just minimal access you need. So just to enhance the security posture on the system. Yeah.
I would have a quick question about the metadata blueprint. Are you guys still working on it? I know.
It's operating. Yes and no. We don't have. Well, it's not a straightforward answer. Yeah, yes, we are in that the code and the blueprint are actually being maintained currently. We see the future for that code that we're working on, which obviously includes the metamodel definition, as being essentially a methodology for being able to show customers and partners the way forward. But we're not planning to turn that into any form of solution. So the code will essentially end up being, for an internal asset for use in engaging with customers and partners. The metamodel, we would, if there's interest from the community, like to contribute from a point of view of getting the community to extend, because it's relatively simple at the moment. I think it needs extension, and it needs to be made canonical. I don't think that's something that we believe we've gone as far as we should with it. As a Microsoft only project, it either needs to become a community project or it should be retired.
Okay. So the reason I'm
Yeah, by all means. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, because there's another angle to that, isn't there?
Yeah. I just want to add to that. Remember, I was talking about the Margo project. So this Margo project is a very opinionated spec, like how you describe your applications, your infrastructure, etc. So this is a higher level object model. So to support this, we actually introduced a layer called Hydra in Symfony. So basically, we can ingest high object levels, then convert to our lower level object model and just use the Symfony mechanism to do work. I would imagine like for the metadata support, it can be like fused more natively into Symfony in the future so that we can just ingest the metadata model. I mean, it's kind of happening today, but more on like a from the meta model end, but we want to bring that into the Symfony end so that we can natively support that.
Yeah, so the basic reason why I was asking is because as we are working towards, guaranteeing a certain quality and maturity to our projects, of course, a tool chain is absolutely essential. And what we want to do is, since we want to, of course, propose a template or a reference or a set of tools that we would recommend, just to give an example to the project. Of course, every project is able and is free to use whatever toolchain they want. So for us to have an abstraction layer and a general metadata toolchain blueprint would be essential, particularly as we move forward with integration gates requiring artifacts from projects. So that would be absolutely interesting for the working group.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think what we envisaged was more of a sort of conceptual model for a tool chain that hopefully we can agree around, and then the meta model, then however it becomes, whether it becomes something that derives from the community or whether it ends up being Hydra defined or what have you. That essentially substantiates that and sort of go no further, from a point of view of then clearly people can have their own implementations that then align with that. Well, I think that's the model. Now, that said, as we know, there are also other proposals to go deeper in terms of actually starting to, enable some pieces of that tool chain as well. I think whatever the case is, I think there is an argument for a sort of a subgroup, whether it's a SIG or a project or whatever, that is focused on this topic of tool chains. I think it's an idea whose time has come.
Yeah, so if anyone's interested of you here and of course of the people online, just please do let us know and we'll figure out what we can do. Yep. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.